Hello, family members. I hope you're having a nice day today. I want to talk to you today about Bobby Broccoli's new movie, 17 Pages. Kevin Mackay, I guess. Maybe it's Mackay? I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. So I've only ever heard himself refer to himself as Bobby Broccoli. So, anyway, I can't talk about this film without talking about the platform that it's on. And so that's going to be part of this review, and I'll kind of get into why. But there will be minor spoilers for me to explain what it is that she's over there making love to Jiggly Caliente's photo. Sorry. But it will, I'll definitely have to give some mild spoilers. So if you have Nebula and you're planning on watching 17 Pages and you don't want to have any potential spoilers at all, then you might want to go watch it first. I literally cannot explain the real problem with it without spoiling. But I will give a general review in that I do think that it's very well made. I would say it's higher quality than your typical Bobby Broccoli YouTube video, which are usually pretty high quality. And not just because he got to go out and do interviews with people who are actually involved with the events that he's documenting on location in multiple states. In the United States, remember, Bobby is Canadian, so, that's, he did quite a bit of travel, put a lot of effort into it, and I would say that most of that effort paid off beautifully. It is a very interesting story. It seems to me like a pretty important story. At one point, he says that when he was reaching out to people to ask if they wanted to be involved, they were like, why are you dredging this issue up again? What are you going to add? And I think that he did add a lot. I think that he was right to go forward with the project. I am extremely excited to see whatever it is that he does next, either on YouTube or Nebula. So, glowing review of the quality of the subject matter and the way that it was handled, the sensitivity. I think that it showed. I don't know why she's being so spicy today. Sorry. I really do think that it was a great piece of work, and that Bobby Broccoli, Kevan, whatever, he should be very proud of himself. He did a fabulous job. And so now's the part where I have to talk about the main problem. So this is where we're gonna get into spoilers. So spoiler warning, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. Just in case. I don't want anyone to think that I didn't give them plenty of chance. The problem with the film is that it is a two-part film. It's not advertised that way, and that's purposeful. The reason why it's done the way it's done is so that he could set it up, I guess, on Nebula, so that when people went to watch it, they were either given one part of the story first or the other part of the story first. Because there's two very distinct sides in this issue, and a lot of people come into it hearing only one side first, and he kind of wanted to replicate that experience in the audience to see if that alone created some sort of bias. And in a sense, wanted to I guess, sort of do a science experiment on his audience, which, pretty on brand, honestly, for a science YouTuber. So can't blame him for that, I guess. But the problem with that is in the execution. Here is this idea, which is something that is really smart, that could not be done on YouTube. YouTube doesn't have the infrastructure to randomly show one version first to part of the audience and one version first to the other part of the audience. What is your problem? She is spicy as heck. Well, I'm not petting you anymore then. Oh, she didn't like that. Are you done? Can I finish? Anyway, the problem is Nebula doesn't have that infrastructure either. And what happened to me is I watched this on the day it premiered on YouTube, on Nebula on my TV, on the Nebula app that I watch on my TV. That's how I watch Nebula. That's how I watch YouTube. I'm not using my phone. I'm not using tablets. I'm using televisions. I think a lot of YouTubers forget that a significant portion of people watch YouTube on TV today. They assume everyone's watching on their phones or maybe a tablet. And, that's certainly a large part of it, I'm sure, but smart TVs have YouTube app, have Nebula app now. Didn't used to. My gosh, she is still glaring at me, you guys. Can you believe this? What do you want? She wants me to play, don't you? Anyway, I've never had Osprey distract me this much. It's usually one of the dogs. It's kind of weird. So, anyway, I went in, pulled up Bobby Broccoli's channel. It's not there. It's not on Bobby Broccoli's channel. It's on its own separate channel, I guess, because it's an original or whatever. But it was on the home screen, so I was able to get in. I was pretty annoyed because Bobby Broccoli had said that it was coming out early 2025 last year. And so, we didn't hear anything. January, February, I think it was like maybe March or April. He finally was like, oh yeah, it's coming out in May. That's not early 2025. Like, I was a little perturbed that they had set expectations rather poorly there. But things happen with films. So May 12th, I'm like, all right, I've been waiting for this for months. I'm really interested in it. I've watched all of his other stuff like a 5 bajillion times. I could probably recite parts of it. Waiting, that's just the kind of person I am. I rewatch things a lot. And it was like, oh yeah, by the way, it's going to come out at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I'm like, so you're going to make me wait pretty late into the day too, after making me, okay, all right, fine. So I watch it and I'm like, I made note of the fact that the people that I saw first, or that I was seeing being interviewed in person, were all pretty much from the same side. And my supposition was that was because the story didn't necessarily paint them in a very positive light and they wouldn't want to be involved in the project. And turns out I was kind of right about that. Because I got the Margot Toole version first. And she is one of the principal actors on one side. And the principal actors on the other side are David Baltimore and Teresa Mishikari. And neither one of them would be involved in the project. But still, I think that when you watch the second half, which I eventually got to do, we'll get into why eventually in a minute here. I think that they do a good job of presenting the other side as best they could. It's just, even if I had seen that side first, I think I would have seen through the BS. Anyway, so I finished watching and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. And then he comes on and he says, okay, this is really a part one. Keep watching. And then it goes back to the home screen. And I'm like, okay. And so I open it up to watch again to see if maybe that's what I was supposed to do. Or I open up the little channel to see if there's another thing. Nothing. Nothing. And I'm like, okay. So I just start it again and it just plays the same part again. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe part two is coming out soon. I didn't see anything that indicated that anywhere. Didn't really seem like that would make sense. But Nebula doesn't have comments, so, or community pages or anything like that. Now, when creators pitch Nebula on their YouTube channels to their watchers, they tend to characterize the lack of comments on Nebula as a good thing. Oh, we don't have to worry about toxic comment sections. Nebula is behind a paywall. It's people who care enough about these creators to go out of their way. Don't think you would get like a whole bunch of like nasty, bad faith acting trolls, bots, anything like that on Nebula, because if there were comment section, it's behind a paywall, okay? So there's no way for me to, within Nebula, especially on my TV, try to like figure out what the heck's going on. I Google it and I don't get anything. Eventually, I even like, I went on Reddit, I did a lot. I could not figure out how to watch the other part of this stupid movie that I was so excited to see for months. I just couldn't find it. Today, I finally thought of, well, what if I go on Bobby Broccoli's community post comments? That is finally where I found a couple of comments about people saying that they had trouble on their Roku, but they were able to watch it on iOS. And I was like, ping. Okay, so I open up my phone, open up Nebula, and I'm able to watch the second part. I can't tell you how annoying that is to me. I have a hearing loss. My phone is not that loud, which is normally a good thing. I don't like really loud noises. I don't use earphones because I'm afraid of damaging my hearing further. I was told by an audiologist early in my life not to. I've had that reinforced multiple times. I don't use headphones. So when I have to watch something on my phone, if I don't have like a quiet place, it's really hard for me to hear, which is why I prefer to watch on the TV, because I can turn the volume up to whatever level I need. So I did finally get to watch it, and the whole time I was just like, so like, these motherfuckers, These motherfuckers. Like, it is infuriating how these women were treated. Because on one side you have Margot O'Toole, and the other side you have her boss, Teresa Imanishikari. Well, the thing is, you get all these men involved, and then they like to project things, and they like to turn it into like a personal problem between these two women. And both of them spent like over a decade in insane amounts of stress and agony because there was literally no system in place for them to handle the issue that Margot brought to them. There was no formal process for her to follow. And it really was important that the case became what it did. Not necessarily this specific case, but some case like this needed to be brought to this level of prominence for the systems to be put in place for people to be able to resolve issues like this appropriately going forward. But it's also really frustrating to see these two women essentially pay the price, be the sacrificial lambs, the modern human sacrifice, in order to get this task done. That men, older white men, basically used them as proxies to try to play out a battle between the leadership of science resisting oversight and the need for good oversight and whistleblower procedures and things like that, because there are always going to be bad faith actors. And so there has to be a place for people to raise their concerns when their concerns are something they have with someone who is in their direct leadership. You know, when your boss or your boss's boss is doing something that's wrong, normally you would take any problems you have to your boss, but you can't really do that when they're the problem. And Margot just did not get a good response when she tried to go through the leadership at her school. She was basically brushed off as if this was a personality conflict. And would that have happened if they weren't both women? I can see why there was such a deep conflict between these two women, because they are the exact opposite type of scientists. There are scientists who love science, want to make it their life's work, but they do also have a life outside of that. They want to have their family, children, get married, more than just their job. They want to be more than just their job. And then there are scientists who are so devoted to their job. They feel like that's all they want to do. And that's great. That's wonderful. I admire people that are like that. But it's really hard to work in science when you're the first type, because the second type has no respect for you. I respect them, but they would not respect me. That is why I did not want to go into laboratory science. I was a biology major, and I did a little bit of work in like microbiology labs and stuff like that, and it was not the place for me. Academia really is a very, very, very tough place to make a career. You have to be very dogged. And people play favorites an awful lot. I know someone who is one of the smartest people that I know, who tried at multiple universities to get his PhD in microbiology, and he couldn't because he kept getting screwed over by the schools or his advisors or whatever. Things just kept being thrown in his path. He is half indigenous, and he does keep his hair long, and I don't know if that's part of why he had so many obstacles thrown in his way or so little favor that was shown to him. I don't know. But it absolutely blows my mind that he did not make it in academia because he's so smart. He's so smart and he's so dedicated and he's so organized. Like, he's the guy who got me into playing role-playing games, tabletop RPGs. But we didn't play them tabletop. We played them in IRC chat because we were way big nerds. And it was not Dungeons and Dragons. It was like, what was the superhero one he really liked? And then there was Vampire the Masquerade. And I mean, there was all sorts of fun stuff like that. You know, he was the prototypical nerd. And even he couldn't make it in academia. Academia is a hostile atmosphere, even today. You know, I have brother and sister-in-law that have their masters in ecology, and they are, no, I think it's actually environmental science. Yeah, it's environmental science. They, you know, I see all of the, like, politics and the grant applications, you know, because right around the time that they were finishing up their degrees, they got married and had a kid. So my sister-in-law kind of is Margaret O'Toole in a way. And so, yeah, I really found her amazing. I found that great. I just, even when I was hearing the other side of the story, over and over again, people are like, well, yeah, she's right, but it's not that big of a deal. And it's like, what? What? You know? Yeah, she's right, but science is supposed to be right always. It doesn't happen because we're human beings and we make mistakes. But the fact of the matter is, Teresa Mishikari, the way she talks about the way she kept notes, wrote things down, kept data, is appalling. Like, the very first thing that you learn when you're in labs, like in high school, like basic stuff, is you gotta keep documentation. This woman was taking our taxpayer money to do science and then was being that careless, that negligent with her record keeping, and everybody admits it. And yet, instead of being like, hey, you need to do better record keeping, we need to address this issue, instead of that, Margot said, oh, well, you know, we can do something because you're having a little personality conflict with your boss. No. So then she goes to a friend, or someone she thought was a friend, and that just made everything worse. Because she kept running into these series of people who were like, well, you're right, but. Well, you're right, but. And I feel like all of the other people who tried to downplay it or tried to discourage Margot from taking it further or doing anything more or whatever, they're the ones who really ruined things for Teresa. It wasn't Margot who messed up Teresa's life. It was all those other people who tried to pretend that they didn't see a problem because they didn't want to address the problem. And they kept thinking that the problem would go away, and it wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't go away, and they just never knew when to give up. And it's not hard at all when you listen to the words of David Baltimore to hear his taking this particular case and seeing it in his mind as a symbol of something bigger, which I think is fair, because I feel like the congressional committee that finally took the time to look into it and take it seriously, we're trying to make a point. But I think he saw them as acting in bad faith when they weren't. And I think they correctly saw that he didn't understand that he needed to be accountable, that he couldn't just bully and bluster his way through everything. I feel like that David Baltimore guy really screwed up and made two other scientists, two women, have to go through all of this stress. And I think this was an important story. I'm really glad that Bobby Broccoli made it. And it's really frustrating to me that it was so hard for me to figure out how to even see the whole story. Even though I was anticipating it, I'd been checking Nebula periodically because I wanted to know what was going on. Even though I had Googled it, I'd gone to his YouTube channel, I'd done everything I could think to do, and until I saw some other people in the comments who had thought to do something differently than I had. That's the comments on a community post that was posted before the premiere. This is the problem with Nebula. This is the problem. He has made this wonderful, 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 wonderful movie that's important, that's about an important topic, that people worked with him in good faith to reopen old wounds so that they could try to set the record straight once and for all. And it's locked behind a paywall. And people who watch it on their TVs may never actually even get to see both sides of the story because they may not try as hard as I did. I don't know what the answer to this is. Maybe the answer is that Nebula needs to put more time and attention into making sure that their apps work for people watching than funding all these cool projects for creators. I love the cool projects for creators. Anyone who's seen my Jessie Gender short film / TV pilot review, I loved that. I'm glad that she got to make that. I'm glad that Bobby / Kevan got to make this. But when your app is fundamentally causing your viewers to not be able to see the product or appreciate the product, then what good is the product? What good is Margot and all the people that Kevan interviewed going through all this again? What good is that if the only place where it's available is this hostile to watchers, to viewers, to the audience? Nebula is a streaming service created by creators for creators. It is not created for viewers. And YouTube, for all its problems, is created for viewers, not creators. So why wouldn't a viewer prefer to be on YouTube, even if they know they could watch the same content on Nebula that with like uncensored or longer sections or no like ad reads or blah, blah, blah. Why would we come to Nebula over YouTube, even though there are some small perks, when it's this actively hostile to the audience? I know that YouTube creators hate the algorithm, but YouTube watchers could not use YouTube without it. I love the algorithm. Like, I wish it put more people on my channel, but it brings me things I like. No comment section. Who's that for? That has to be just we don't want to build this and pay money. I think that they are making a mistake focusing on content over the infrastructure to enjoy the content. And no matter how good this movie is, and it is very good, it is forever tainted because of the fact that it's a Nebula exclusive. So I hope something is done about this, because I want people to be able to see this film. I think it's great. If you don't have Nebula, I do think it is very worth it. I mean, it's not very expensive, and you do get a lot of content, and it's a nice way to support creators who are making good things. But it's not a great service. I'm sorry. So, all right. I better end this before my phone decides to end it for me. I'm going to show you this spicy princess, though. Look at this. Look at this thing. She was chewing on me, scratching. Now she's just a sweet little baby. Cats.